So I'm Dinesh, I'm CTO at Civo, but I've been using VMware for 15 years. Previous business that I had built out an MSP using VMware. It's a great product, right? So I absolutely love it, and I absolutely love using it. I don't think there's anything wrong with VMware, but I have a great worry about what is happening to it at the moment. And as Henry alluded to, coming firsthand from his experiences, and there are a few of the other team that have come from within Broadcom and are describing what has been happening to VMware over the past 12 months. But taking it all the way back to 1999, a little history lesson of where VMware started. This was the first version of VMware launched in 1999. It was 2000 it was launched, started development in 1999 by Diane Green, Mendel Robinson, Scott Devine, Edward Wang, and Edward Bourguignon. I don't know if anyone's used this in the audience. A quick show of hands if anyone did use these original versions. But it was a real paradigm shift in how we did computing at the time. Could even argue that it is the birthplace of the cloud. Before this, everything was done on hardware. You had to get a support ticket in. You would then go and procure hardware from somewhere like Dell, get it racked up in the data center, and it would be there online all of the time. And whether you used it or not, that was it. I was just on the sustainability panel, and none of what we were talking about in that could be achieved without virtualization. And that's what VMware brought. Little timeline of where VMware went since then, up until the Broadcom acquisition. So they released ESX Server in 2001, and really became the fastest growing hypervisor in at least the enterprise space. And this was massively accelerated in 2006 when they launched a free version of ESXi, where you could run this on your home lab, in your home environment, and really start getting a feel for what this virtualization thing was about. And it was a huge, great move in terms of market adoption, because, again, if I did a show of hands of who used VMware, who still has VMware certifications as well, right? Built there with that skill set that you could test a home lab, you could start playing around with things and start getting that experience. Then, when a really, really amazing visionary move, VMware started working with AWS for their partnership in 2016, allowing you to run VMware workloads natively inside AWS. VMware could see this shift towards a cloud and really wanted to be part of it, and this was the first, I think, real move in starting to play with AWS and the other hyperscalers to create a future for VMware. VMware then started working on the Tanzu suite of products. I think VMware could see this shift of workloads being run not by systems administrators, but by developers, and giving them the power with Tanzu and the Tanzu Grid suite of products, giving VMware that future as we move into a cloud-native world. In 2023, according to their fiscal year reports, VMware had a $13.35 billion revenue in that year alone, representing a 3% year-on-year growth, serving over 500,000 customers globally, and every single one of the US Fortune 500 companies was running VMware. This is despite all of the conversations that we're having at the time about a move to the cloud that we've been hearing probably for the last 7-8 years. VMware has a home and on-prem cloud computing is still a massive part of the IT world that we have today. I guess that's where Broadcom comes in, and some reasons why I think that VMware was very interesting to Broadcom. So they've been moving towards enterprise software for a while, and they've got a real track record, Broadcom, of buying mature companies in this enterprise space, especially with a track record of sustainable revenue from sticky enterprise customers who are making purchasing and technology decisions not based on price or the technology itself, but based on risk. If you go to these industries, in these companies, you go, we want to make a technology change. We want to move to the cloud. We want to move to containers. The first question you're going to ask is, what's the risk profile you've done about this move? might as well stay with VMware. We know it runs and will continue to stay on that platform, and which for Broadcom was a really interesting area and allowed them to do, as I'll share later, what they've been doing elsewhere. Timeline of this. So just before May 2022, at the end of 2021, it was announced that Dell EMC were selling their share in VMware and putting it to stand on its own. And I feel it was by no coincidence that a few months later, Broadcom announced their intention to buy VMware for $61 billion. As a side note, while I was doing the research for this, it meant that Michael Dell took a personal takeaway from this deal of $21.65 billion from the Broadcom acquisition itself. Touching on some of the concerns, I think there was a big gap here between the announcement in May 2022 and the kind of green light at the end of the summer of 2023, is that Broadcom had to do a lot of work with the various regulatory commissions in the EU, in the UK, and around the rest of the world, where there were huge concerns being brought up around antitrust regulations. Broadcom had to give assurances that they wouldn't stifle competition and that they would continue to sustain pricing and support. Eventually, in August 2023, the EU and the UK agreed that there wouldn't be a huge amount of issues with the deal going ahead, and in November 2023, it closed for an eventual $69 billion. So customers were promised a set of things during this 1 year, year and a half lead up into the close of the acquisition. Continued investment in VMware products and services, maintaining a customer-centric approach to going about engaging with customers, accelerating innovation in multi-cloud and edge computing, and preserving VMware's ecosystem and partnerships. A huge amount of VMware's business came through channel and partnerships, and I think if you've been talking to any of the channel partners recently, they would not echo any of these statements. During the process, investors were told that they would be able to grow revenue from $4.7 billion to $8.5 billion in 3 years. That was, however, from those 500,000 customers, that only 600 of the accounts would be focused on actively, 6,000 accounts would be sustained, some gap in the middle, and there was a prediction that at least 100,000 customers would be allowed to trail off. Now, I don't know how you can go about getting rid of customers, ensuring that they leave at the bottom end, yet doubling revenue in 3 years without doing one thing. 2 things: reducing overheads and increasing costs. Coming to a show near you previously on Broadcom. I don't know if anyone has recognizes these logos, but in 2018, CA Technologies was purchased by Broadcom. And this is what happened with this very similar promise to investors of increasing revenue. For CA Technologies, this meant getting rid of, well, letting go of 2,000 employees within the first few weeks of the deal closing. The set of products came down from over 1,800 down to about 100 products. And that shift of focus from a broad set of the market to those enterprise customers that, as I said earlier, mainly made decisions based on risk. To maintain profitability, there was obviously a large price increase in all of the remaining 100 products. In 2018, it was reported that CA Technologies had a revenue of about $4.24 billion. And while it's harder to predict, last year, CA Technologies is said to have contributed between $3 and $4 billion worth of revenue to to Broadcom. So again, proving that they're able to reduce their overheads, reduce the number of staff, reduce the number of products that they have to support, yet not changing the revenue numbers and therefore increasing profitability. Similar story here with Symantec, which they acquired in 2019. 1,000 employees let go within the first few months. Several set of products were discontinued, including Norton. all of the consumer divisions were sold off, and Broadcom started focusing on enterprises, and again, a significant set of price rises. In 2019, just before the acquisition, Symantec reported a total revenue of about $4.7 billion, and it's predicted that Symantec contribute about $2 to $3 billion today towards Broadcom's global revenue. Again, reducing margins and keeping revenue broadly the same, as much as we can tell. Come now to 2024, the first 12 months of VMware's time as VMware by Broadcom. 3,000 employees in the first month after the acquisition. We know of several products that have now been discontinued, listing off just a few: vSphere Basic, Standard, Advanced, Enterprise Plus, the vSphere Hypervisor, the free version of ESXi, the vCenter Standard and Foundation. These are all products that still exist, but are now bundled into the VCF package as the only way that you can purchase it. They've also changed VCF from perpetual licensing with support to a subscription-based service. And I've heard of customers seeing upwards of between 8x and 18x increases on prices. Which leads us to what we can do about it. Hands up if you're still running VMware. In a few people here. Hopefully you've all thought about these options. This is nothing new. You've got one option to stay with Broadcom. And I specifically put here that you're not staying with VMware. You're staying with Broadcom, because there's an emotional shift that you need to have, that you are no longer working with VMware. You're no longer working with that company that you have known for the past nearly 13, 14 years. This is now Broadcom with a completely different playbook when they go to market. You could move to the public cloud with a lift and shift. You likely already have workloads in the public cloud, and that it seems like a safe place to go. The other alternative, for regulatory reasons, is you might need to keep on-prem, and therefore you're looking at other alternatives that are out there, Civo being one of them with the FlexCore we announced yesterday, but also things like Nutanix, OpenShift, OpenStack. I think something to bear in mind is whatever you're choosing, there is a different skill set that's required with where you're moving to, which is going to require either new staff with the skill sets and the trainings and the certifications you needed, or giving your existing engineers time to move and learn the new technologies. Another option is to start modernizing your workload. So this is looking at things like containers, moving to SaaS, or whatever you need to be doing. And it's going to start with working out what you currently have hosted in VMware. Was talking to Kelsey Hightower this morning, and he said that there needs to be a shift in what we think about when we're doing a migration. It's like moving a house. What you need to be doing when you move house is taking all of the furniture out of the house, putting it in a truck and moving it to a new house, and likely putting that furniture back in a slightly different way. Not lifting your house up, putting some wheels underneath it, sticking it on the back of a trailer and move your entire house over to somewhere new. I thought that was a really interesting way of seeing lift and shift, rather than modernizing of what you're actually wanting to run on-prem. Cloud-native future, so this is kind of looking forward even further than containerization. Of what generally we have hosted in these environments is applications, right? So can they be changed into serverless or WebAssembly? Can they be put into containers? Or as I said, moving over to SaaS. So really think of this as an opportunity to change where you can, rather than, as I say, just picking the house up and moving next door. Wanted to touch a little bit about CivoStack. So the CivoStack and FlexCore is built on what we call the software stack is the CivoStack. I've said that too much. But this is the same software that we run in our public cloud that we're allowing you to run on-prem as a VMware alternative. So it's been proven, running at scale, and as we make improvements and changes to our public cloud, they will get rolled up and you will get those benefits. It's also a fully managed solution as well, so that it's very similar to how you run VMware today, where you're not looking under the hood of what virtualization is, how things like NSX actually move packets around. It comes as a fully wrapped solution where you're able to just run workloads, interact with it with things like CLIs and Terraforms and an API. We can deliver this in multiple ways. So the same public cloud experience on our FlexCore private clouds, where we will give you the hardware, you just plug it in with power and network, and then you get the same experience. We've also got the software-only option. So on-prem usually has a large capital expenditure and continued investment in things like x86 servers, SANs, networking devices, which you can't throw away. It would be non-sustainable. It would likely be unethical to get rid of this equipment before it's come to the end of its life. So our software only allows you to interact with a public cloud on that hardware. I've got a video here which is going to show the migration tool that we mentioned yesterday, but it's about 3 minutes and it will run you through how you can move workloads from VMware over onto Civo.
Welcome to our tutorial on migrating your VMware instances to Civo. Today we're going to guide you through a straightforward process that will seamlessly transition your VMware instances to Civo's cloud platform. Let's get started. First, let's ensure our current VMware instance is running as expected. For the purposes of this demo, we'll be moving a virtual machine running Nginx. Now we'll access the VMware instance's console and demonstrate a running Nginx server. On the VM's console, log in using the credentials. Once in, we'll run the curl localhost command to verify Nginx is operational. Next, let's confirm the web page is active. We'll now open a web browser and navigate to the VM's specific IP address. We're ready to start the migration to Civo. Head over to the VMware Importer tool at Civo's website. Now log into Civo using the Continue with Civo option and enter your relevant credentials. Once in, select the ESXi import option and enter the necessary ESXi host and user details. Be careful with the password entry. For this demo, I have selected the demo region, whereas you'd be selecting your own private region or one of the Civo public regions, if applicable. In the importer, I am going to select the default settings for this demo, but you can select other options for network and firewall if required. Next, click on Fetch Data to retrieve your VM information. Then, in the table that appears, select the VM you wish to migrate by ticking the box next to the desired VMs. You can override the defaults if you wish to migrate an instance to a different region, network, or firewall. Finally, initiate the migration by clicking Import to Civo. This will start the process of importing your instance to Civo's platform. Once the migration is complete, we'll connect to our new Civo instance. Use SSH to connect to the provided IP address for the CivoStack instance with the login credentials. After successfully logging in, we'll verify the Nginx server's operational status. This will ensure everything migrated correctly. The final step is to access the Nginx server through the new CivoStack instance IP address to confirm it's up and running. You will also get the ability to create the IP addresses in the subnets of your choice, should you want to keep the IP address unchanged. And that's it. You have successfully migrated your VMware instance to Civo. For more information and support, please contact our support team. Thank you for watching.
So that's on the website if you did want to share it with anyone else when the conference is over. Touch briefly on FlexCore, so all of the abilities in our public cloud, so that's managed Kubernetes, object storage, with the right hardware in place, GPUs are also available, and Relax, as we announced yesterday, is also available on FlexCores with the right hardware. Just want to leave you with a few thoughts and a few actions that you can take away with. VMware style computing and on-prem cloud is here to stay and will be part of our future. That's due to things like security and sovereignty, but also for internal platforms that don't need to be necessarily hosted out onto the internet. So that's everything from me. If there are any questions, happy to take them. Thank you. Oh. Question there was, are we planning to make it open source? There are no plans at the moment. I'm happy to talk about the stack. We do build on top of Kubernetes. We build on top of KubeVirt for the virtualization. But we have put the wrap around it to make it easy to use. That is our closed source kind of proprietary system that we've got in place. Henry, can you do some mics?
I'm not a big fan of Windows, but I have to ask about your converter. Of course, it's working good with the Linux, with Nginx, but how about, I don't know, maybe Windows Server?
Absolutely. So it's a cold migration process because you're changing from VMware virtualization to KVM under the hood. So it does shut down, it will move it over, and it will start it up. For Windows, the only difference is you'll need to pre-install the network drivers for the new virtualization endpoint. Other than that, it's completely seamless.
What's the lead time for your FlexCore?
We have some beta environments out on the racks at the moment. We're looking at general availability in January. If you do want more information, Peter, standing right behind you with a microphone, is the person to talk to about the pricing and delivery dates. Thank you very much. If there are any other questions, find Peter downstairs or me. I'll be wandering around.